Straight ahead.
There being 85 ayes and 63 nays, SB 2 is passed to engrossment.
History made. For the first time, the Texas House passed a school choice bill that uses tax dollars to send students to private school. We were there for the vote during the early morning hours and spoke with Republicans and Democrats immediately after the vote about what's next. Emotional day. Opponents to the legislation made their presence known throughout the Capitol, while Republicans got a pep talk from the president. And primary battle. There's talk of a potential third candidate who may enter the already contentious GOP primary for U.S. Senate against Senator John Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton. Good morning, I'm Jack Fink at the Texas Capitol. Get your fix for Texas politics. Eye on Politics starts now. Happy Easter, and for those of you who just wrapped up celebrating Passover, we hope you had a nice holiday as well. We're here at the Texas Capitol because for the first time ever, the Texas House has passed a bill that will give taxpayer dollars for students to attend private school. It's controversial legislation that is now one step closer to becoming law in Texas, and it happened after a long day and night for lawmakers. Shortly after photojournalist Manuel Villela and I arrived at the Texas Capitol Wednesday, opponents of the School Choice Education Savings Accounts bill made their voices heard.
Fund our schools! Fund our schools!
It was 8:30 in the morning, and their chants in the rotunda reverberated throughout the corridors and chambers as they hoped to influence the Texas House hours before they considered SB 2, the bill to spend taxpayer money to send students to private school.
Fund our schools! We are watching.
As their numbers increased, so did the volume. At 9:05 on the west side of the Capitol, House Republicans began gathering for a planned meeting with Governor Greg Abbott.
Jack, how's it going, man?
Good morning, Governor.
Nearly an hour later, I asked Governor Abbott about the meeting. What was your message today?
So we just talked about how everything that they've been doing is just common sense. It's common sense for Texas to be among the 2/3 of the states in the United States that support school choice. We are working to make sure that we use this pathway of creating school choice to put Texas on a pathway to becoming the #1 state in the United States for educating our kids. That begins right here, right now, today in the Texas Capitol.
How confident are you today?
Very confident.
We are ready for the fight today.
Back in the rotunda at 10 a.m., Democratic House members joined the rally held by those opposed to the governor's school choice bill.
This is the big day. I think that Texans are ready. Texans have shown up, and they have saying that they want to have their voice heard.
Plesa said she and other Democrats supported the idea of proposing an amendment requiring a statewide voter referendum on this issue before an education savings account program could become law.
This is about choice, right? So let's give the voters the choice.
At 11:40, a half hour after our first live report about the school choice bill, we spoke with Representative Jared Patterson of Frisco, who was among the Republicans who met with the governor. Patterson had posted on X about the meeting that turned this debate into a national story. Quote, remarkable live phone call between Governor Abbott, Texas House Republican caucus members, and the President of the United States this morning in support of our upcoming vote on empowering parents through school choice. The President called into the meeting.
This is a big vote today, and I hope you are able to vote in a positive manner.
It was an honor to hear from President Trump talk about the great work that we're doing here in Texas.
Chair lays out SB 2 as a
At 3:33 p.m., after lawmakers approved a bill to increase funding for Texas public schools, the House began debating SB 2. At 5:28 p.m., Democratic Representative James Tallarico of Austin proposed the amendment to require Texas voters approve taxpayer-funded education savings accounts before they could become law.
The governor has said private school vouchers are wildly popular. And so if he's telling the truth, I would think this referendum would have no trouble passing. I would also think the governor would welcome an opportunity to finally have a mandate on this controversial topic.
Republican Representative Mitch Little of Louisville rejected that.
Representative Tellerico, if we're going to delegate our lawmaking authority directly to the people, why do we need to be here at all? Why don't we just do that with every bill? Is there a good reason to do that?
But I think this body is justified in sending this issue to the voters for their approval because of its impact on public education, because of its impact on taxes.
But the amendment went nowhere. It was tabled by the Republican majority. Under the legislation, students who go to an accredited private school will receive about $10,000 a year through an education savings account. Those with disabilities will get up to $30,000 a year, while homeschool students will get $2,000 a year. At 8:36 p.m., tense moments as Democratic Representative Gene Wu raised his voice while debating the measure with Republican Brent Money.
I'm done with my answer! He got one.
That tension turned to levity when Republican Brooks Landgraf, who was presiding over the session at that point, slammed the gavel so hard that it broke and shattered the glass on the dais. It's 10:45 at night, about 40 minutes after our last live report on the debate over the governor's school choice bill. And inside the Texas House chamber behind me, lawmakers have been debating for more than 7 hours now. It's already been a long day for lawmakers, and the debate could last into the early morning hours. While a universal program, students with disabilities and those from low-income families will be prioritized. It's now midnight, and lawmakers are still debating 8.5 hours after they began. Democrats have filed dozens of amendments to try to kill this bill, with no luck so far. At 12:58 a.m., the Democrats' 43rd and final amendment was tabled by Republicans. Then the final speeches by lawmakers before they cast their vote. They include Democratic Representative Ana Maria Rodriguez Ramos of Dallas, who spoke against the bill at 1:09.
Please know we fought till the very end and we're still fighting, but the fight is not over tonight. Elections matter, and that's why we need to continue to fight.
At 1:20 a.m., Representative Helen Kerwin of Glen Rose supported the bill. She is one of various Republicans who challenged and defeated incumbents from the same party who opposed school choice.
What we're really doing is, yes, we're delivering positive improvements in the lives and the education of our school children.
This is a record vote. The clerk will ring the bell.
At 2:06 a.m., more than 10.5 hours after all the speeches and debates began, finally, the moment of truth. Time to vote on the education savings account bill.
There being 85 ayes and 63 nays, SB 2 is passed.
After the vote, we spoke with Republican and Democratic lawmakers. They include Republicans Katrina Pierson of Rockwall and Mike Olcott of Aledo. Both are freshmen who, with the support of Governor Abbott last year, unseated incumbent Republicans who opposed school choice 2 years ago.
I think I'm just elated. We were determined to stay here as long as it took. You know, many of us have been in the front of this fight for decades, and today we delivered for Texas families.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of excitement in the chamber, especially among the Republicans, obviously, that voted for it. It's been an issue that's been front and center throughout the whole campaign that both of us ran, as well as the last 2 or 3 months. It's one of Governor Abbott's top priorities, and I'm just glad we got it past the finish line, and looking forward to moving on to some other bills now. But no, we're excited, and I think you heard that back there, just how excited we all are about getting this done.
What do you say to Texans out there on why this is going to help students? Because we heard Democrats say this is welfare for rich people who already attend private schools. So what do you say to that?
One of the things I think that was brilliant about what Chairman Buckley did with this bill was that the way he staggered these different tiers. And the first priority tier are the special needs kids, and then the second tier that gets funding after that are the lower income kids, and then just works its way up. So I just think it's a bogus argument, and we didn't buy it, and so we think it's going to provide opportunity and freedom for children, especially lower income children, to actually move up the ladder and find a environment that works the best for them.
Well, I think the Democrats actually made our case in the closing speech. You will find in one of the closings they started out by saying, if it's true that our students have poor outcomes, then it's our fault. It's the government's failure. Well, that's why we're here, because there are a lot of families who are not happy with the outcomes in their public schools, and this gives families a choice to go to private school or charter school, all the schools that they have now at their fingertips, and parents will be in the driver's seat from now on.
My last question to both of you, I appreciate your time, is as far as what the Republicans say, that low-income students, disabled students are going to be prioritized, how important is it that the state actually follows through on that and makes that happen, at least until we see who all applies for this program?
I think it's very important, because I think that if that doesn't happen and you find that this money is only going to people that are currently in private schools and to wealthy people, it's probably not going to get renewed next year. I think it's going to be a PR nightmare. But I have full confidence in Chairman Buckley's, the way he's written this bill, that we're going to do it right, and those people are going to have opportunities that wouldn't have otherwise.
And I would just say the bill is actually structured for that purpose. When you're looking at private school versus public school, the children who are in private schools, and by the way, the schools have to sign up to participate in the program to begin with, and most private schools aren't, because they don't want to have any types of regulations coming from the state. So this is designed for those low-income families to go to those schools that no one even talks about. Everybody wants to talk about these $50,000 private schools. That's not what this is for. This is for the low-income families who are in communities that have affordable private schools.
Democrats Mihaela Plesa and John Bryant, both of Dallas, expressed disappointment, and they challenged Texas Democratic voters to respond during next year's elections.
I think it's a tragic day for Texas as we see the Republican assault on public education that sustained us all of these years, that educated the greatest generation and generations after that. It's given us our community traditions, our Friday night football, our excellence across the board in business and in academia and in sports and in everything else that we've enjoyed, as Republicans try to privatize public education by giving tax dollars to people to go to private schools, 2/3 of whom we know will be people that already go to private schools, not poor people.
I too am deeply disappointed in my colleagues. There still was a bipartisan effort to vote no on this bill, and I'm proud of my Republican colleagues who had the political fortitude to stand with their constituents and vote no. Look, everybody knows what happened here. Governor Abbott dumped a bunch of money in Republican primaries to scare a bunch of people off. And today, when Governor Abbott was afraid, he put a call into the White House to have Donald Trump call my colleagues and make fear into them for them to vote no on this bill. And that's what we saw today, because even after Republicans voted no on this bill, they went on social media and said they voted because they felt they had to, knowing the bill might pass, but they are still skeptical in this voucher scam. So I don't think much has changed in the last 2 years since we were here.
What's next? What should and can Democrats do now that they've had second reading? Nothing's going to change on the third reading, but it may come back to the House if the Senate doesn't go along with the changes, right?
Well, look, this is what's next. What's next is the elections for all these people who decided to vote yes on this bill. Because I can tell you, I am a student of history, and I have seen that members who have voted for vouchers tend to lose their next elections. So all those members better stand strong in their convictions to vote to defund public schools and take Texas tax dollars out of public schools and put them in unaccountable private schools. Because I think, like I've said to you before, this is not a Republican or Democrat issue, this is a Texas issue. And the majority of Texans, this came out on Fox today, still wanted this to go before the voters and are against these voucher scams.
Representative, your thoughts on what's next? What do Democrats do next?
I think if there's an opening to defeat vouchers, we will certainly take it. I think, though, that we have to make clear that this is part of the Republican assault on public education and the attempt to privatize it. It's one more step in that direction.
Last question. What is your message to Democrats and others who oppose this legislation now that it's passed?
To Democrats?
And to others who are opposed.
Yeah. Our message is that elections matter, And if you want to support your public schools, you're going to have to leave the House and go and vote for Democratic members of the legislature. If you continue to vote for Republican members of the legislature, you're going to lose your public schools.
Well, my message is my Republican colleagues talk a lot about eliminating property taxes and reducing people's property taxes. I can tell you one thing about this bill. This bill is going to make all our property taxes go up. And politicians are going to have to live with those consequences.
The House gave final passage to the bill on Thursday afternoon, and on Friday, both Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick and the chairman of the Senate Education Committee, Brandon Creighton, said they're recommending to senators that they approve of the changes that the House made to the original bill. That is a significant development because it will keep it from going back to the House and speed up the process of getting it to the governor's desk to sign. The House also overwhelmingly approved a new bill that will inject billions of dollars in new money for public schools, including teacher pay raises. And coming up next from the Texas Capitol, there's talk that Senator John Cornyn and Attorney General Ken Paxton may not be the only Republicans to run in the primary for U.S. Senate next year, when Eye on Politics returns. Welcome back to Eye on Politics from the Texas Capitol. The Republican primary for U.S. Senate between incumbent Senator John Cornyn and Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton has certainly generated a lot of national headlines and buzz here in the Lone Star State. But now there's talk a third Republican may be thinking about jumping into the race.
Wesley Hunt is a combat veteran.
That third person may be Congressman Wesley Hunt from the Houston area. A group supporting Hunt called Standing for Texas has been running ads in the state, including the Dallas-Fort Worth area and in West Palm Beach, Florida, home to President Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate.
A fearless America First Republican who stands with President Trump to put Texans first.
At a White House event recently, the president complimented Hunt about the ad.
Wesley Hunt, my friend too. Wesley, great. I love your commercial.
You know, he's very close to Wesley Hunt.
Longtime GOP consultant Vinnie Machillo calls Congressman Hunt a rising star in the Republican Party and says if he does enter the race, it would change the dynamic.
Number one, he'd push it into a runoff. And number two, he would bring just a whole new set of messages.
But why would he get into this race when you have, as you said, two 800-pound political guerrillas with distinct brands?
It's a high-risk move for Wesley Hunt. And I think in a lot of ways, he and Ken Paxton would be splitting the anti-Cornyn vote. So he would hope to get himself into a runoff, probably against Cornyn.
As for President Trump, he was asked last weekend about the Paxton-Cornyn primary and whether he would make an endorsement.
Well, they're both friends of mine. They're both good men, so I'll make a determination at the race.
Minchillo says there's no need for the president to pick sides this early.
I do think the president will endorse in this race, but I don't think it's going to come until the very end.
Oh, like what, next year, like January,
Absolutely,
like after
yeah.
the first of the year?
Yeah.
Former Democratic Congressman Colin Allred has said he is considering running for this seat. He lost to Senator Ted Cruz last year. With Paxton leaving the Attorney General's office, that's creating another rare vacancy for a statewide office. Two Republicans have announced their campaigns for the primary. Former United States Attorney for the Western District of Texas during the first Trump administration, John Bash, and State Senator Mays Middleton, who's pledged spending $10 million of his own money on the race. State Senator Bryant Hughes told me last week that he too is considering jumping into this primary. Democratic State Senator Nathan Johnson of Dallas told me last week he's considering a run for higher office as well, but he didn't specify which race he may enter. We'll be back from the Texas Capitol in just a moment, but first, here's this week's brief with Sarah Jenkins.
Early this week, President Trump talked about sending U.S. citizens who commit violent crimes to El Salvador and wants his Attorney General to look into the idea. Deporting U.S. citizens could be challenged under the 8th Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishments, under the 5th Amendment in terms of due process, or under the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection of the law for all citizens. Article 1 of the Constitution also states that only Congress can write the statutes that determine punishment for federal crimes. Deporting Americans would also be illegal under one of President Trump's signature first-term laws, the First Step Act, signed into law by President Trump in December 2018. requires the Bureau of Prisons to, quote, house inmates in facilities as close to their primary residence as possible and to the extent practicable within 500 driving miles of that home.
Early voting starts Tuesday ahead of the May 3rd municipal elections. In Fort Worth, Mayor Maddie Parker is running for another term. She has 7 challengers, and 10 city council positions are also up for grabs. In Dallas, only the city council is on the ballot this year. There are 14 city council districts. Early voting continues until Tuesday, April 29th. Again, Election Day is Saturday, May 3rd. Polls on that day are open from 7 a.m. until 7 p.m. And don't forget, you can watch all the full interviews from today's show. Just go to our CBS Texas YouTube page and hit the subscribe button. And that's all for Eye on Politics this week. I'm Jack Fink. I am listening, and we are listening to you at CBS News Texas. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you again next week. And from all of us, have a great Sunday.